So the Steam Game Fest just ended a little while ago, and I wanted to highlight some of the demos that caught my eye. I'll be talking about the quality of the demos as well as how well they present the games. Let's cut right to the chase. Ghostrunner speaks to me as a fan of all things cyberpunk. It's this first-person shooter with beautifully realized visuals and cool gameplay that has elements of Titanfall and Hotline Miami. There's a lot to love conceptually. However, the demo only took me 10 minutes to finish and really lacked combat variety. The game features a one-hit kill mechanic similar to Hotline Miami, and there's a focus on using a katana. The thing is, swinging your sword feels like a one-trick pony. There's nothing really neat you can do besides possibly blocking shots and just slicing up dudes. Also, the one-hit kill mechanic seems to possibly limit enemy variety. Perhaps the developers should look into expanding the mechanics. Regardless, I do enjoy the fast-paced parkour gameplay. It's reminiscent of Titanfall 2's wall-running hijinks. Like that game, Ghostrunner has a good mix between combat and platforming. Time slows down when dashing in mid-air, allowing for players to adjust their position to dodge incoming projectiles. It's a neat idea, but like the rest of the combat, it feels one note. Just being able to dodge in mid-air during slow-mo doesn't really change much of the dynamics besides making the one-hit kill mechanic more bearable. Besides that, I like where the story is headed, but it's a case of less is more. It's presented in a way that got me engaged, but sadly, it ends before we get anything really interesting. The demo is short and to the point. Sadly, there just isn't much there besides the skeletal structure of the game, a proof of concept if you will. Stylistically, I love the cyberpunk Hotline Miami vibes I'm getting, so I definitely look forward to seeing the final release. Said to come out sometime this year, it could potentially tide us over while we wait for Cyberpunk 2077. On the other side of the spectrum, Ultrakill's demo really delivers with regards to presenting fully formed gameplay mechanics. It's a first-person shooter that combines familiar point-and-shoot gameplay with spectacle fighter mechanics. Solid movement mechanics and a style-based system that feels straight out of Devil May Cry take center stage. The game wears its influences on its shoulder, and I like the way the gunplay feels. Going for that retro FPS style, the music and sound design really take the cake with regards to making the experience feel like a power trip. Though the game features only a revolver and a shotgun, it feels completely fleshed out. This demo took me around 40 minutes to finish, and I felt like it really gave me a sense of how the game will probably end up once it gets released. I also like the fact that the demo lets you choose difficulties and rates you on your performance. I can imagine players replaying the levels in order to constantly improve their skills while waiting for the final release. With regards to health, Ultrakill follows the Doom 2016 route of healing through close quarters combat and killing enemies. Unlike that game, however, there are no glory kills, so it never takes control away from the player. This game takes it even further as it avoids health kits and armor altogether in favor of just this system. This complements the point-and-shoot gameplay as it adds a wider degree of player freedom and better combat flow to the experience. Weapons also have alternate modes of fire like your standard charge shot and more interesting types like throwing a coin that can be shot reflecting the bullet towards an enemy weak point. When I think of the demo, I get some OG Doom shareware vibes and I like that. The music blaring in the background, the exciting and responsive sound design, and the punchy fast-paced gameplay really sold me on Ultrakill. Of course, this is also because of how well fleshed out the demo is, unlike the snippet of gameplay we got from Ghostrunner. Ultrakill seems to be a damn fine game that I look forward to picking up someday. It's supposedly coming out this summer, so definitely keep your eyes peeled for it. After tackling yet another shooter, I decided to try out Outrider Mako. Or is it Mako? It's a top-down action game with minor RPG elements, and the main appeal would probably be the focus on Japanese folklore. Mechanically, it's a mostly straightforward action game. However, its unique traits would have to be the pounce and slime mechanics. The former is a sort of homing attack, but rather than bounce off the enemy upon collision, your character mounts on top of them. The latter dispenses slime onto targets, which causes them to be temporarily immobilized. I found more use with the pounce than the slime, but even then, pouncing didn't seem to be all that well realized. There never really was a time where I felt it was necessary within the demo, which was a bit disappointing. I hope the developers flesh out the mechanics before the final release. The game follows a fetch quest structure. You have clients that want particular items, so you run around killing enemies and mining stone. Once the materials are gathered, you craft the item they want, deliver it to the client, and then run back to home base. Thankfully, it's not too backtracky due to various shortcuts, but I just don't see that much that deviates Outrider Mako from other top-down action games besides the Japanese folklore thing. Anyway, back to first-person shooters. Jipang 2 is like an indie version of Fear. It's a very satisfying FPS with slow-mo, invisibility, and a sick sliding move. Similar to the one in Ultrakill, but with the ability to kick enemies, it's real good. I'm usually not too fond of military-style shooters that only let you hold 2 guns, but Jipang makes up for it with its polished gunplay. There's elegance in how well the shooting feels, and I like me a good slide. It's a mechanically satisfying demo that I'd especially recommend for those that hold Fear fondly. However, it's not much in line with my preferred type of FPS. Jipang 2 looks great, plays great, and has very satisfying gunplay. It's definitely worth trying out and possibly getting hyped for. Into RPG land, Haven is a role-playing game starring a loving couple, and that's pretty big in my opinion. I can't think of any games that really focus on playing as a couple, so this felt particularly unique in that regard. It's a cool concept for a game to revolve around. However, it's actually a pretty bland demo. The most appealing part would have to be the relationship between our 2 characters, Yu and Kei, as well as the brief minute or 2 of combat the demo provides. Other than that, the in-game graphics seem kind of dated in a way where it's like the cell shading is compensating for its graphics rather than complementing them. I feel like it's not a demo worth trying. This isn't to say that the game doesn't show promise, but that I feel like there isn't enough to justify downloading and playing such a small bit of game. It's worth keeping an eye on, but in comparison to many of the other demos I've mentioned, this demo is a disappointment. Also, it is a time-limited demo, so you can't even try it out now even if you wanted to. Alright, back to the first-person perspective. Shady Knight is a first-person hack-and-slash game with an emphasis on vertical movement. Traversal usually focuses on traveling up a tower and killing a bunch of soldiers and spiders. When the gameplay clicks, it does pretty well, but when there's jank, it's pretty bad. One of the levels is a kinda crappy tutorial that forces you to learn some of the mechanics. However, one of the mechanics is particularly janky. You have to jump on the head of an enemy in this tutorial, which felt a little too precise for a game in first person. I suggested developers either make it easier to do or scrap it altogether, as it isn't too useful in any area besides this fourth segment. Also, the tutorial telling the player to press the reset button after a failed head jump lacks design elegance. Combat-wise, the hacking and slashing are functional and occasionally engaging. I particularly like how the charge attack can be used in 3 different ways. There's your standard charge attack that just slashes horizontally for additional damage, the charge jump attack for a neat vertical slice, and throwing your sword. That last one in particular reminds me of Nidhogg in a good way. The platforming took a bit for it to really click for me, but once I got it, I found it to be pretty enjoyable. One of the levels has this frustrating bit that has you repeating traversal after each failed jump onto a piece of hanging rope. This is because missing said rope will drop you back to the start of the level. It felt like a bad choice and got on my nerves because I was not familiar with rope climbing at that time. Ideally, when teaching players about new mechanics, you should do it in a safe place. In this case, it feels like a tedious time-based punishment. Platforming in first person is often an imprecise art, which Shady Knight doesn't seem to understand sometimes. Regardless, it's a decent demo besides the occasional issue and that lame tutorial bit. That tutorial is a real drag that made me kinda want to do something else with my life. This demo is passable with regards to displaying mechanics, but it doesn't do a great job at selling the game. Also, the kicking is kind of lame. I feel like there's a lack of sound design polish holding it back from feeling all that great. And it should probably have more of an impact. As it is right now, it just seems tacked on and in need of improvement. Even when I kick enemies into traps, it's not really that satisfying compared to just mindlessly hacking away. Overall, Ultrakill had the best demo that I played so far. That polish and presentation really sold me on a game that didn't particularly catch my eye at first. It's a demo done right with just enough to keep me wanting more, while giving enough away to convince me of its quality. Of course, Ghostrunner is really cool and whatnot, but it seems like it needs some more time in the oven before it can really shine. It's like a game that has a lot going for it in theory, but there hasn't been enough development for it to fully come into its own just yet. Besides those 2 powerhouses, the other games varied from solid to just not worth playing. Conceptually, I'd probably place Jipang 2 in 3rd place as it plays so damn well that I can't deny its quality. As a demo, I'd put it second only to Ultrakill. Now that's a game that goes home and puts on jeans. Speaking of putting on jeans, I'd like to give a shout out to Starfetchers. There's a free first episode that's been out for a while now, and it really is the bomb. It's one of those games that speaks to me in ways that I should really discuss with my psychiatrist. Check it out on Steam if you have time. I highly recommend it. Starfetchers is one of those games that I wouldn't hesitate picking up on day one and really want to talk about in detail one of these days. There are more demos I'd like to talk about, so this might not be the end of my Steam Game Fest coverage.
The glass ceiling broken, all the oppressed groups shall prosper, especially the most oppressed group of all, gamers.
Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please like the video and consider subscribing to my channel. If you want more, here are some of my other videos. Anyway, I'll see you all next time when I complain about the existential crisis of 2020, juxtaposing with the beauty of playing Sunset Overdrive all day in a dreamlike haze.